Jumping back into our great white shark, we're just going to keep refining our shark coloration and start layering in some detail as we develop out these colors a bit more. So the first thing we want to do is clean up any kind of areas that either we smudge some color off into the background, or our background still is a little bit seen in our shark. So we're going to go ahead and fix that right now. One of the areas that I'm going to fix right here is some of my teal. It was a little out of hand down here. So I'm just going to very lightly and very gently go in and feather that out. So I'm using my medium brush right now, and that's just like that. I'm able to get that to disappear. Awesome. So I'm going to go in and start doing a little bit more detail in the back of our shark. So mainly through adding contrast. So we're going to use some phthalo blue and some of that carbon black. We're going to mix up some. Oh, there we go. We're going to add more blue than black, because black will absolutely overcome your painting if you add too much of it. So you really want to have a deep, deep, deep navy color. So using our flat brush again, see how much darker that is now? We're going to go in and just add a few areas where we're going to be this dark, mostly on the back end and a little bit in the pectoral fins and around the gills. So we're going to be using two brushes in tandem here. So I just used my flat brush to lay in the color. And now we're going to switch over to that round brush that we used earlier to outline our shark. And we're going to feather color out. So now we're going to use the color that we already had mixed up, which was our teal, black, and a little bit of white. Like right here. Makes this kind of gray-green color. You can see that was actually still a little too light, so I'm going to add just a little bit more dark to it. A little bit more and a little bit more, and there we go. So you're going to lay in your color with your bigger brush, and then you're going to use your smaller brush to mix it and feather it. So now you're going to be just playing with these colors quite a bit. So there's not going to be any exact way that you can do this, guys. You're just going to have to sit there and take the time and have patience figuring out this pushing and pulling of coloration. But you'll be rewarded for this, absolutely. You'll get an excellent gradient and you'll get really great contrast. So even a little bit right there. While this is all wet, I'm going to go in, smooth that out just a bit more. And then you can even pull some of that darkness into the fin a bit more, kind of creating these striations right here. And that's just going to add a little bit more texture and form to your fin. Now, even with that, I still wanted to really darken up just that line where the dorsal fin meets the body. And then I'm going to come down here to our gills and I'm going to grab a bit more water on that round brush, because the round brush tends to get dry very, very fast because it can only hold a little bit of pigment. And I'm going to come through and redefine all of these gills. Keep in mind that your gills are going to kind of curve over like a weird boxy C once they reach the end. It's like that. And then they also have, again, remember that muscle, that form we were adding with these lines that shoot up from there. And then, of course, they have muscle and a center line that go down the back, which we're just going to add in like so. And that lateral line curves down and goes all the way back here to this point where our tail is. And of course, you're going to want to add in that shadow just behind the pectoral fin on the body. Define that a bit more. And you're going to also add a shadow on the front portion of the pectoral fin to show form and the angle of that fin. This is looking really nice, guys. So just take your time. This is going to be the portion of the painting that takes the longest. So just relax, put on some good jams, and just enjoy yourself. And of course, feel free to ask any questions throughout the class. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. But try to wait till you're completely done with the painting before reaching out, just because you might actually have your question answered as we develop this piece. I'm gonna hop back in and recreate a little bit of our original gray mix, teal mix color. Now I'm using that round brush still. And I'm gonna go back in with our flat brush. With a little bit of water on it. And I'm going to start to blend in some more of these darks. And so keep in mind that we're going to be having a highlight run down the body along with the darker point, which was our lateral line. But we'll be adding brighter and brighter brights as we move along. So that's really just going to be added in with just a tad bit of white to our blue, our teal and black mixture. And see how that line that we had for the lateral line was super defined up there? That didn't quite look right. So just so you know, whenever we put in a line, you're easily able to feather it out just by layering over and over again. Different colors, pushing and pulling these colors like I was saying earlier. It's gonna be really how you learn how to develop these kind of paintings in a consistent manner. And so right here, I'm creating form by doing these little like half curve, kind of half moon shapes over the body using this flat brush, just creating kind of like these little textured, little scratchy marks. And that really does help give him some form. Now again, we're going to be using that black and blue mix, going to be like this super deep navy color. You're going to be using that primarily back here in the tail, a little bit in the pelvic fin, and also a little bit for more contrast at the back of the tail, all the way back here. And then of course, again, right here where the pectoral fin meets the body. Now that we just went in and feathered that color, that lighter color in just a second ago, and then we go in with a darker color, that's where you really get some cool interest, like right here. So just keep in mind that you will not get this perfectly right on the first brush stroke. It's gonna take a little bit of playing around with this piece, but I promise you, stick with it, guys, you will get it. Add a little bit more of our dark coloration on the upper portion of the body. And we're gonna do that same little like half moon, kind of little scritchy scratchy curvature right here. And then immediately gonna go in with some teal and some white, a little bit of our black color. Soften that up again. So I'm working with a pretty dry brush, and so the dry brushing technique is actually one of my favorites. You get this very textured kind of look, and it's really a fun way to start learning how to handle your brush and your colors to create certain effects, like creating the scratches on the skin and the texture, creating form. Those are all excellent examples of how you can use this technique to learn. And now over here, I'm starting to layer in where the counter shading line is actually going to be. And it goes across the lower portion of the gills, so keep that in mind. So I'm kind of almost like treating it like little cross-hatching techniques, which is technically a graphite technique, but you're just doing these little little tiny X's with your brush. So I'm pretty happy with this next layering that we've just done with our shark. So now I'm gonna go in and we're gonna work on the belly and adding in some more of the brightness and the whites in the belly. So I'm gonna hop in immediately with some pure white. Again, I'm using our medium flat brush. Get in the core areas where we're gonna have white, and I'm gonna just do a little bit down here. And then gonna go ahead and not even waiting for it to dry, you're gonna grab a little bit of teal. And that's just pure teal with a clean brush. We're gonna start blending these together. And remember how our little mouth up here didn't just end with like a little tick tick, it like went around with a curve and then it curved back down. So we're actually creating right now the actual mouth, but there will be a shadow involved in this as well, which we'll do in just a little bit. And don't forget, the white coloration is in the gills, right there. And now I'm gonna grab actually a little bit of our dark blue color and a little bit of our teal color, mix that together, come down here below the fin, and actually start working this color up into the gills. And that's because our gills are actually more in shadow on the lower portion than not, and so they're not gonna be pure white. They're gonna be the shadowed white, which is this blue color, because again, what we were saying earlier with camouflage, our shark is reflecting the colors around him, so his belly is gonna also be this blue, phthalo blue color, just in a different value. You're also gonna use that blue color to go all the way up the belly, because again, we're gonna be building up to a darker version of this over time. And you're gonna also use that same color back here where we put that little splash of white. Just to add a little bit of highlight back there. Very, very good, guys. So now we're gonna grab some dark blue and just like plain dark blue. We're gonna feather in just a little bit in this back pectoral fin, and then I'm gonna dry brush off some of the pigment so we don't keep adding blue on. And then I'm just going to push around the color that we just layered in all around that fin. And you're basically gonna give it a nice little wash, little slight feathering effect, just like that. So it almost like it disappears into the water. Now we're gonna redefine it, of course, a little bit later, but this is just so that we really create that emphasis and show more depth with this piece. We're gonna get some more of that pure blue. Start it under here, do a little strike, do a little strike, a little bit more back here. And then switch over to our round brush while everything is still wet. You won't be able to work with it again once it dries, so go ahead with a little bit of a wet brush and swirl that pigment around. So just gonna blend it up. And we'll be doing this a few times, so no rush or worry if you don't get it just right. And see, look, I didn't even go quick enough, that already dried. So I'm gonna have to go back in with some more blue. And I have to grab some of our teal. And now we're cooking. So I'm gonna use our teal phthalo blue mix to go in here with the gills, and we're gonna create more of that shadow. It's below, and it's gonna come out, extend out just a little bit under the cheek, and that's actually what we're making is like the little cheek right here. And now after that, we're gonna hop back into pure white, and we're going to add in the really, really bright junction between the dark and the light of our great white shark. And so the brightest point of your white's definitely gonna be on the cheek and on the face, around the eye. You're gonna have some highlights going down the back and a little bit on the gill. And you're also, very important, you're gonna have a little bit of white on the lower jaw right here. It's gonna feather down into the belly. And I like to do this while that blue shadow that we just created for our gills is still wet, so you can make it blend very nicely and softly, creating some visual harmony there so you don't have any kind of harsh edges and lines, and it looks very soft and very nice. It really pulls it together. And there's just going to be a little bit of pure white on the gills. Definitely try to keep some right up here, again, like I said, on the side of the face. And of course, as soon as you lay in your white, you're gonna wanna blend it. Blendy, blendy, guys. And you see how I'm handling my little round brush here. Just pushing and pulling. And again, with a dry brush technique is what I'm doing. Excellent, guys. So there's going to be just a tiny, tiny bit of white back here. Mostly it's going to be mixed a little bit of teal. Just like that. So now we're really getting that beautiful soft transition in the belly. So we're gonna let this dry and relax for just a minute, and we're gonna hop back into the upper portion of our great white shark, do a couple more things, and then take a break, and we'll come back and do our final details in the next lesson. So before we do that, we're going to add in some more brights to our upper portion of our coloring. So we're mixing white and teal together, just like so. And then putting off that little white and teal mix to the side and grabbing just a hint of black and mixing it together to get this really soft, light gray color. Another color that really works very well is our ultramarine, which we haven't used yet, and that's because I like to use it more as a detail color than a core color. So you're gonna mix a little bit of that ultramarine in there as well, and it helps tone down some of our teals, so we have a little bit of a different color to look at. So again, I just put that in with a pretty dry brush, so I'm gonna run back over it with a little bit of water just so it doesn't dry on me immediately. And then I'm gonna dry off my round brush, and then I'm gonna come back in and, you guessed it, start doing more dry brushing. Dry brushing is one of my favorite techniques to use. It is super useful. It's great for creating texture and smoothly pushing and pulling shadows and highlights. But just be prepared, you will be going through quite a few brushes if you do dry brushing a lot. So try to find one that you like the most and use it a ton and wear it down, and you'll find the perfect dry brush from that. And then you'll have that one to use whenever you want to use your dry brushing. Excellent brushes to do that can also be mop brushes, which I do not have one right this moment, but soon enough we will be getting those, and we'll show you how to handle those as well. So this Ultramarine Purple is also going to go on the very tippy top of our gills, right there, and a little bit through the cheek area, and obviously right over the eye. So we're using this ultramarine as more of our highlight than we are the white. And that's because the white would be extremely harsh on our shark. A pure white could throw off our color balance and make him look a little bit more pop arty than we want him to look. But you're really concentrating these colors in the very tippy top of the body all the way up to the top of the back, like so. Then as soon as you get the color in, go over with a tiny bit of water just to keep it moist so you can push and pull that color around a little bit longer. And then take off all of that water, dry off the brush completely, and then go in and start dry brushing again. So now I'm creating the eyebrow over our great white shark. And we're going to refine that quite a bit in the next step. You're also going to have a little bit right here over the belly and just above the pectoral fin. And when it comes to the gills, you're really just going to keep your bright spot there pretty heavy, and you're going to lightly pull down that highlight into the white portion. And sometimes I even like to use my finger to just push and pull some of that color around a little bit more quickly. Again, we're going to mix it up a little bit again. Teal, white, a little bit ultramarine, teeny tiny bit of black. Make sure you keep it nice and fresh with a little bit of water in there. Fantastic. Don't forget, you need to do the very tippy top of your dorsal fin, just like so. And you even have a few little lines kind of shooting off the front portion to give, again, a little bit more form to your shark's fin. And then, as we have been doing, we'll dry off the brush and then immediately go back in and start doing some dry brushing. Grabbing that mix, putting a nice highlight on the very tippy top of our pectoral fin, and that's going to really help define it away from the body. Of course, we got to go in and show a bit more transition where the fin meets the body, just to show that he has a little shoulder there. And so you're going to actually follow the line between your base color and your dark color that we did earlier in the pectoral fin. And then you're going to create like a little starburst, like the little lines just like expanding from a point, the point being where the pectoral fin is originating. And then again, you can race over it pretty quickly with a little bit of water to keep it fresh, dry off the brush, and then proceed to start dry brushing again. So as you can see, we're just using this exact same technique that we're learning over and over again and applying it in different areas to create different effects. So I just took that color while it was still really opaque and very see-through and brought it up into the shoulder just a little bit more. Don't forget, you're going to be going down the very, very back of your shark with that highlight as well. And I know we already did that a little bit earlier, but now this one's just a bit more defined. And you're gonna have a little slight highlight in the very, very back caudal fin as well. And don't forget that pectoral fin, that little guy that looks just like the big, not pectoral fin, the pelvic fin, the fin that looks just like the pectoral fin, but is much smaller and back here. Don't forget about that guy too. Very good. All right, guys, this is looking great. So we're gonna take a break and we'll come back in. We'll do our eye and the teeth, kind of do some refining lines, and then we are all done with our great white shark.